As a professional photojournalist, landscapes are a key part of my work, telling the stories about the environmental issues that I cover. But I have a few tips and tricks that I use when I'm making those landscape photos that I think will be really useful for you as well when you're next out taking photos. Hi everyone, my name is Gallagher. I'm a professional photographer and filmmaker. If this is your first time watching my channel, welcome. For the past 20 years, I've been working for clients including National Geographic, The Guardian, and the Pulitzer Center. Here on my channel, I want to share with you some of the things that I've learned throughout my 20-year career as a professional to help you improve your photography. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 different techniques that I use as a professional photographer to make my landscape photography much more interesting. In my work as a professional photojournalist, landscapes are really key in helping give context to some of the issues that I cover. But I have a few tips and tricks up my sleeve that I use in order to help make my landscapes much more interesting and go beyond the obvious pictures. After you finish learning these skills, don't forget to download your copy of my ebook titled The Camera Doesn't Matter, which reveals 10 secrets from professional photography that can help you as an amateur photographer. At the end of the ebook, you can also learn how you can join my private online communities and also join my mentorship program, where you can get one-on-one video calls with me and join my global community of mentees. Okay, let's go on to the first tip that I know is going to help improve your landscape photos. One of the simplest things that you can do to increase the impact of your landscape photos is to simplify things and focus in on just one color. By doing this, you intensify the impact of the image, and that overwhelming one color almost seems to draw your viewer into your frame. Let's have a look at a few images to show you this effect. So in this image, you can see that the dominant color is pink, with tones of purple too. The photo was taken at sunset on a beach in Sri Lanka, and you can clearly see how the overwhelming color in the image draws you into the scene. Similarly, in this image of an island in the South Pacific, you can see that blue dominates the whole frame as we look down on it from above. We're also introducing a little bit of contrast to the main color with the green island on the right. This image takes that idea a little further, as the dominant color is clearly that orange tone of the grass, but we also have the contrasting blue color from the small river, which acts to contrast against the main color. You can also focus on the lack of color, especially if you're photographing a winter scene, and you can take advantage of the strong contrast between whites and blacks and grays. So when you're next out photographing a landscape scene, think about how you can frame the image to focus in just on one color. By doing this, you'll give yourself a much better chance of creating a really impactful and striking image. As ever, all photographers should be guided by light, and I think that's particularly true with landscape photography. I will often plan my whole day around the light and make sure that I'm in the right place at the right time to make that landscape image that I want. For landscape photographers, this often means getting up early, staying out late to make use of the golden hour, like in this image I made in Cambodia at sunset. You can see how the soft golden light from an afternoon sunset adds real drama and texture to the surfaces in the image. Similarly, in this image, I was utilizing the colors in the sky created during the blue hour, which is just after the sun sets or before it rises. Experiment with angles and try to play with the light in combination with the frame's composition and capture unique moments that are highlighted by the light. Light must become the key foundation for all of your landscape images. But just having good light doesn't automatically make for a good image, so make sure you are paying attention to creating dynamic compositions and also try to capture an interesting moment. So check your local weather forecasts and look at apps that allow you to predict where the sun is going to be at any given time of the day, and use all this information to help inform you where you need to be in order to get the best light to make your landscape photos. And remember, if you go out and the lighting conditions aren't exactly the way that you want on that day, don't be afraid to go back. Be persistent, be patient, and wait for that perfect light for your photo. One of my favorite ways to make a landscape photo more interesting is to try to incorporate a lone figure into the photo. As a photojournalist, I'm always looking for different ways to connect people to the issues that I'm covering. So when I'm making a landscape photo, I'm thinking really carefully about how I can convey that relationship between people and the landscape. So in this image of drought-stricken farmland in India, you can see that I captured a lone farmer walking into the field at the bottom of the frame. By doing this, it gives both scale to the image, but also a sense of connection between the local people and the land. You can use this approach in situations where your subject matter is a little closer to the camera too, like in this image I made in the deserts of northern China. Again, having that lone figure accentuates the connection between the landscape and the people. Sometimes landscape scenes are often too static, so for me, having a lone figure somewhere in the scene gives it a sense of being more alive and interesting. In this beach scene from the South Pacific, the running boy just makes the whole scene so much more dynamic and interesting. So look for those opportunities where you may be able to capture someone or something in motion within your frame. Think creatively about where you want to frame them, like in this image of a farmer walking near the Yangtze River in China. Having a lone figure in your scene isn't always appropriate, but if you want to create that feeling of connection between people and the landscape, it's a very simple and effective technique that you can use. If you look at my photos, you can see that it's a technique that I use quite a lot, and I think it can work for you too. In a similar way to capturing that lone figure within your landscape photo, if you're able to capture a bird in flight somewhere within your frame, it can often make for a much more interesting and dynamic composition. Let's have a look at a few images to show you how you can best incorporate flying birds into your landscape photos. A flying bird can add extra dynamic to a photo that would otherwise be quite static and boring. In this scene from the mountains of Tibet, I was really lucky when a bird flew into the frame just as I was photographing the valley behind it. The position of the bird, though, needs to work within the overall composition of the frame, so you need a combination of luck and anticipation to capture the bird in a position that adds to the composition and doesn't detract from it. To take the technique to another level, you can try to capture a flying bird within your landscape and also try to capture other moments in the frame to create an even more dynamic scene. Of course, if there are many birds around, you can try to use this to your advantage and frame them so they fill parts of the frame and make the image even more interesting for your viewer. The key to capturing a bird in flight within your landscape photo is to be really aware of where they are when you're making pictures and to try to anticipate where they may fly into your frame. Of course, this requires a large amount of luck to capture that bird in the perfect position. But if you're patient and if you're lucky, you may just be able to get that perfect bird in the perfect position to elevate your landscape photo. As with many other kinds of photography, one of the keys to making a great photo is to get more creative and change your perspective when you're making an image. Don't just settle for taking photos at eye level. That's what most photographers will do. Use your imagination and get creative with your compositions and change the position of both your body and your camera so that you can find new and interesting angles to take your photos from. In this image, I used a drone to make this high-angle view of a spit of land in the ocean. But when viewed directly from above, the landscape is revealed in a new way and provides a fresh viewpoint for the viewer. I often like to seek out elevated positions as they give me that different perspective that allows me to incorporate more depth into the landscape scenes I'm photographing, taking the viewer all the way from the foreground to the background. Conversely, low angles work really well for landscape images, like in this scene from Mongolia. By kneeling down and getting close to the ground, I was able to blur the foreground and create this really interesting composition of the wild horses in the background. Similarly, in this scene from India, by getting my camera closer to the ground, I was able to frame the subjects of the trees and the group of men against that sky for a more interesting landscape composition. So remember, get creative with your compositions, and that starts from changing your perspective. When you're in a situation, look around you and think about how you can change your perspective and where you can place your camera to make an interesting composition that's going to elevate your landscape photos. If you take this approach every time that you go out taking a landscape photo, you'll soon find that you'll start to create interesting compositions and create dynamic photos that are different from the perspective of other photographers. I always think that the secret to a great landscape photo is to try to find something within the scene that no one else can see. To do this, you have to get creative, and you have to incorporate some of these skills that I've introduced to you in this video. And when you start to do that, I know that they're going to improve your photos. If you're just getting started in landscape photography, I suggest taking each one of these skills one at a time, practicing them until you feel comfortable with them, and then moving on to the next skill. Once you get more advanced, you can then start to combine these different techniques with one another in the same photograph to make even more compelling landscape photos. Remember, the key is to be creative and to use your imagination to try to create landscape photos that are unique to you and your vision. If you've been out taking landscape photos recently, why not share them with me in my online communities? I have one on WhatsApp and one on WeChat. And within these communities, members share their photos with me and other community members for feedback and discussion about photography in general. To get access to the groups, all you need to do is download my ebook, The Camera Doesn't Matter, which you can find via the link in the description on my website. You can also learn about how you can join my mentorship program, where you can get one-on-one video calls with me and join my global community of mentees who are all learning photography together with me. I hope all these skills have been useful to you. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next video.